All right. So, Miss Tawana, how are you doing today?
I am well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing incredible, doing incredible. Had a long day today, but a long productive day. So it's always a good thing we have a long day, but it's productive.
I agree to that. I agree to that.
Absolutely. So, the people are going to want to know, first of all, what was your inspiration behind your book and what really motivated you to actually write it?
Well, I um, love to write. I've been writing since I was a young child, but I didn't really know how important my writing was until one day I'm formerly incarcerated. So one day I was in a writers group in South Bay House of Correction, which is here in Massachusetts. And I had a teacher who was a well known author. Her husband is a well known author. He wrote the book Sand in the Fog, if anybody's ever read that book. And so she always she was intrigued by my writing. And I think that for me, I started writing inside of that place as a journal, kind of what I was feeling throughout the day, all the loud noises, the women, their stories, and what they meant to me. I grew up in the system. So I had a mother that was a drug addict and a father that was absent. My parents were married young. So I traded one system for the other. And I traded foster homes and group homes for a prison cell at the age of 25. So I'm almost 50. And when I started writing, it wasn't abnormal for me to write. I wrote a lot of poetry. Those were things that I loved to do. But this particular teacher, this particular instructor would come into the unit and she would sit down and say, I need you to keep going. And I need you to not be shy about your writing, just keep going. So I continued to do that for many years. And I went between MCI Framingham, which is the women's state prison here in Massachusetts, to the county prison, which is South Bay, where she was at, where she did a class. And I continued to write and I continued to keep journals, but they weren't just journals. They took on a life of their own. Started to talk about the women and how I viewed them as opposed to how they viewed themselves and how we could relate. And then how my story correlated from the time I was a child until me being an adult, being in a prison cell as opposed to a foster home. To me, they're pretty much the same. If you luck out and get a good foster parent, then it doesn't feel the same. But for me, the things that I experienced led me to keep writing. And then my last incarceration, I promised myself when I came home that I would sit, God kept saying, write this book. I need you to share your testimony as to where you were and what I brought you out of. So that's exactly what I did.
And that's incredible. I mean, I hear some of your story and I can relate to some of it. Never been incarcerated thing, but I definitely grew up around people that were in the system, and I was in the system myself. My mom and dad. When I was young, my dad, he left, and so he wasn't really a part of my life when I was young. I watched my mom kind of go from relationship to relationship, and we were on all the government assistance, and all my uncles were on drugs. I grew up around it, so trust me, I saw them. They were in and out of jail. And, the sad part about it is every last one of them are dead now because of that lifestyle. Every last one. I have 4 uncles. They're all dead on my mom's side. And so I can relate to, the childhood trauma of growing up and it really, taking a toll on you going through life. I remember when I was young, I was looking for a way out, but nobody in my immediate circle had what I was looking for or even had the knowledge to help me to get out, because they were stuck. And so can you relate to that a little bit where, when you're growing up and you're in the system, sometimes it's tough and how did you overcome that?
Well, for me, I don't think I really wanted to overcome it as I started to write my book and then rewrite it, and then God's telling me to go back and look at some of my writing. I saw that there was wounds that were inflicted by other people and self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the self-inflicted wounds are the ones that I was the most intrigued by because I recognized that a lot of things that I did, I didn't have to do. And I was pretty much someone who was self-sabotage things. And I'm not really sure if it was intentional or unintentional, but nonetheless, I was aware of them as I was going through my book that my parents actually put me in the system, but I stayed there willingly and voluntarily. And there were some people in my life, good people in my life, who actually were showing me a better way. And I just didn't want to see it for what it was. I wanted my actions to be, I'm in school to be an attorney, and so they say mitigating circumstances. Well, in my case, my mitigating circumstances was that I was in the system since I was a child. I was abused physically, mentally, and emotionally. And so, I kind of used those things as a crutch to either
Mhm.
not do something, not move forward in life, or because I think that internally I really was angry that I had two parents married young, and how could you have kids and not take care of them? And I think that was the attitude that I took on. And I wasn't, as you can see, I'm soft spoken, so I wasn't very loud, but my actions were loud enough to get the court's attention and to get the police's attention. So
Right.
there were people around me who, my uncle, he's a Boston police officer, and he predicted me going to prison when I was 12. I had Uncle Joseph, who's an attorney, very well respected in the state. And, he tried to show me some different things. I had a foster mother who loved me and wanted to adopt me. And I lived with her for 8 years. And her and her son, they tried to show me different things. But I don't think I was open. I think I was still stuck on how could my parents have me and just leave. I think that's where I was at. And that's why I stayed stuck even as an adult for a very long time. So there were people in my life who did tell me that this would be the end result for me. They didn't think this would be the end result for me, just so you know that. They didn't think that I would be successful. They thought
Right.
that I would spend the rest of my life in prison.
Right.
Uh, and those people to this day are still waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think they might take a dirt nap before that happens. But nonetheless, I sit in a position where I have self accountability. A lot of people don't have that. I can say it started with my parents, but it definitely ended with me. I picked up the ball and I ran with it. They passed it to me and I ran with it and I held on to it for as long as I could.
Awesome. Well, you know what? Let me ask you a question. As far as the book, are there any particular like messages or themes that you will hope that readers will take away from the book?
I would hope that they would take away hope.
Okay.
I would hope that they would take away faith and healing, and not allowing that cliche, don't let your past predict your future. Um, for me, it's knowing when to let go of the past, because a lot of people see, like Dr. Martin Luther King, he was angry.
Hmm.
People just didn't see it. He used his anger to fuse him to do positive things. And I
Right.
think that,
Right.
my anger didn't fuel me to do positive things, but it doesn't have to be like that for other people who share my story. They don't have to go to jail 7 times. They don't have to be in prison. They don't have to leave their kids behind. They don't have to lose to win. And I think that I want people to really understand the importance of, yes, these things can happen. And yes, they hurt. And you can't really put a timeline on healing. It doesn't work like that.
Right. Right.
Everyone heals differently, but I want young women and men to know that there is someone like them. I don't look like the normal person who's ever been in prison. What does that look like? And so when you see somebody like me, there's hope, right? I don't look like I've ever been to prison. I look successful. I don't look like I have many problems. Um, but at the end of the day, I want them to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that's not a cliche. That change can come, and that's not a cliche. Those are not just things that people say because they want you to challenge yourself to think outside of the box. It's a real thing. And I want them to know that God is real. He's in
Right.
charge. He's moving, and wherever your destination is going to be, he'll get you there if you allow him. And I think that in this book, I want you to see more of God and less of my bad behavior. You'll see God moving me through a system that should have swallowed me up and never spit me out. I was supposed to be serving a 60-year sentence. I walked out of the courtroom with 4 years probation. I was looking at life, and I
Wow.
was already in my 40s. And so when you see things like that happen, and you'll see it in the book, you say to yourself, wow, I don't ever want to do, I want people to read this book and say, I don't ever want to do any of what she did until the
Right. Exactly. Right. Right. Right.
end. Right. That's what I want,
Wow.
honestly.
Wow. Well, you know what? Just piggybacking on what you just said, I love that you got to lose to win. So just piggybacking, can you discuss challenges that you face while writing the book? Because I know a lot of times when you're writing the book and you're those thoughts are coming in, and you may not be exactly where you want to be, but God's he's giving you the foresight, he's giving you the direction, he's telling you what to write. But sometimes our current circumstances could hinder us from really writing, because we feel like we're not worthy enough to try to tell somebody else what they should do when we've already done so much.
I think that for me, the biggest challenge was I going to tell it all? And I know that, my daughter would read this book. Mm-hmm. Trishan would read this book. I have siblings that would read this book. My mom would read this book. Mm-hmm. There are people who I wrote about in this book, and I'm very transparent. I wasn't really concerned about what people would think of me. I actually came home and started my own podcast and was very open. I was interviewing a lot of politicians and people that knew me, prosecutors that had sentenced me to prison, that were on my podcast, that knew exactly where I came from and what I was trying to do, trying to change laws, trying to get things to change. So for me, it wasn't really about what I didn't want people to know about me. In fact, I may have given you a little bit too much. God says I didn't give enough, and that's why there's a part two. But I think that for me the challenge was how I would stir up feelings for people who were a part of my story. My mother, my sister. There was parts of the book, and she did finish reading it, and she was like, "You have such a good memory. I didn't remember it until you wrote it." And for my daughter, she brought the book and she hasn't finished. She hasn't even started, because it's not because she doesn't know all about me. I'm very open, and I want her to learn from my story. But some of the things about me being molested and details that I put in there are not things that I've shared with her. So I think that sometimes people have to be very open to reading the book. People that know me may not know certain things that happened to me, and they'll read it in this book. And that was the only challenge I faced, was not what people would think of me, but how it would make them feel.
Right. Right. And I can imagine, especially, going through some of the stuff you went through, and like you said, family members that are in the book, or even friends, or anybody that's in the book. Yeah, some people may get offended, but we also got to understand that, a lot of times I tell people all the time that some of the stuff you do is not for you, and it's bigger than yourself. And a lot of times you think about it, I think, what was it? I think it's Tyler Perry. I think they just did like a story on him, like a brand new movie, right? They're sharing a lot of stuff that he went through. Well, a lot of that trauma, he used it in a way to get him ahead in life. He took the traumatic events and created characters and created funny scenes to help him deal with his trauma. And, lo and behold, we know the end result, right? Billionaire, right? We know the end result. Is your story look kind of similar? Like, whereas you used a lot of the childhood trauma you put in the book, and now after the book, are you going to be using that to like inspire a lot more people? Like you said, as far as, young women that may be going through the same thing, young mothers may have went through the same thing, they've been incarcerated, whatever the case may be. Talk about that a little bit.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I want people to take from this, and the reason why I wrote this and was so open, is because I want people to know, don't do it. I've already done it. Mm-hmm. I wasn't successful. I've been hurt. I had parents who I didn't feel loved me. I was in foster home after foster home. I was molested. I was sexually assaulted as an adult. I went through all of those things, and I look back and I say, geez, I would never want anybody to have to experience this. Now, there's things that you can't control as a child. Right. There are things can control as we get older. And the things that we can control, I want you to take control of it before life takes control of you, because it's dark and it's lonely when no one wants. I don't want people to be and experience the things that I willingly experienced, because I wasn't willing to either go into therapy, talk to God about this, because he's the ultimate healer. And that's one thing that I've always had a relationship with God. But the more he spoke to me, the more defiant I became. He had a plan for me, but I had a different plan. But whatever my plan was, he used it for good, for people who may be going down the same road as me, to say, I don't want to do that. I want to do what she's doing right now. I want to go to law school. I want to write books. I want to be able to have a podcast and speak to people and change laws. I think it is important for people to really understand that whatever you went through as a child doesn't have to be the end for you as an adult. We I find that I spend more time saying, how do I help this person heal without re-traumatizing them with my story? How do I tell I've been what you've been through without sharing the intricate details? Because maybe some people are harder to get through to than others, and you may have to share a little bit more. But then you don't want to re-traumatize people all over again. You want to share your experience and hope that they understand, that you give them just enough that they walk away and you give them hope. The hope doesn't come from me. It always comes from God. I'm in a place where if God tells me to go, I go. Now, don't think that I don't sit here and talk like, did you hear that, God? I'm not doing that. That's crazy. I'm just not doing that. Why do you want me to do that? But then after it's done, I'm like, oh, I see why. Because it's never about me. So anything that I do as of today and any day, I share my story openly. When I'm a contractor. So I'll give you an example. I started a job, and I won't say where, but I was very open with my coworkers about my story before my book even came out. So when they got the book, they got to know a lot more, but they weren't shocked by what they were reading.
Right.
I always want people to know where I came from, so they don't just think that I just walked into this thing and I have it all together and I know everything, because I don't. Right? God gave me this gift of one more chance, like 1,000 chance. And when he gave me that, he knew that it would be the last time. 7's the number of completion in the Bible. I was incarcerated 7 times.
Wow.
You know, I think sometimes we have to look at our story and use it as a testimony. Sometimes it's for me. Why was my mother on drugs? Why did my father marry my mother young and then leave? And why, if he left, why did he take us? Why did he leave by himself? Like, you had 2 kids there that you decided to leave behind. The same reason why you left is the same reason why you should have took us with you.
Exactly.
And you think about those things and you say, okay, well, how do I help other people who are in this situation? I actually did Beyond Scared Straight while I was in South Bay. I'm sure you've seen the show before.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the original show.
Right. And I did it because I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to embarrass my family. But, the superintendent was very adamant about me looking so normal that people would be shocked to even see me on this type of show. Well, what I realized is that I helped a lot of those people that were on that show. I actually bumped into one of the young ladies. She was following me around Walgreens. She didn't want to say anything. First, she didn't know it was me. And then secondly, I think she was afraid to approach me. But when she did, she said, when I first saw you, I'm like, she's soft. I'm definitely not going to, I'll walk all over her. She said, you were the toughest one, and I learned the most from you.
Wow.
I think that sometimes what you see is not always what you get.
Exactly.
And so my exterior doesn't tell a lot about my story until I start speaking. I think even as an attorney, I'm going to have clients that are going to say, well, what do you really know about this life? What do you know about this? Well, I know more than you think that I know.
Right, exactly.
And so don't let a look fool you. Don't let even someone's past fool you. You never know where someone came from. But the bottom line is you never know how much God can pull you out of it till you allow him to do it.
Man, I love that. And it's so funny because, when I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, I'm hearing, and you said hope. You kept saying hope. Let's talk about, okay, we know where you came from. We know the things you went through. We know the reason and inspiration for the book. What is life right now for Tawana? What's going on right now? What are the great things that you have that's, actually coming into fruition right now that you probably wrote about even when you were incarcerated? I don't know. But what's going on right now?
Well, a healthy relationship is going on right now. I think that it's important to have healthy relationships, and even when they're not so great, trying to get to a place where it's better than it was before. The other thing is having a healthy relationship with myself. Being okay with the skin that I'm in. I think a lot of people look at me and they think, she dresses nice, she looks good, but I was a woman who had very low self-esteem at one point in time, and I fooled you with my outside. So now that my insides and my outsides match, it's easier for me to walk with my head held high, even on my worst day, even when I'm not feeling the day. I am in school. I'm graduating in a couple of months. I am off to law school in the fall 2024.
Awesome.
I'm working on my second book. I'm a contractor. I don't want to, the one thing that I try not to do is lie to people. I was the biggest liar. So I
Okay.
think that I don't go to jobs and tell them I can give you 5 years of my life because I can't. I'm a contractor. I can give you a year. And as long as I'm in school, you can have that time. But once I graduate, I will no longer be available to you. I will be in my profession practicing law because I want to help people that are like me, or that think that there's no hope for them, or really thinks that nobody loves them. I love everybody. If you meet anybody that knows me, I love everybody. I feel like I wasn't loved enough as a child, so the love that I didn't receive, I try to give it out freely to everybody. I talk to everybody. Homeless people, I go out a lot. I don't have as much time, but when I first came home, I did a lot of events where I served mothers and fathers, and those are things that I like to do. My podcast was my baby, and it was something that I took great pride in. So these days, it's just about finishing school, continuing to work. This is the first time in since I was 25 years old that I have lived in a place that the police are not looking for me, that my name is on the lease, that I pay my rent with my own money, that no one is, I don't have to look over my shoulder. I've been home for almost 4 years. I don't have to look over my shoulder. I hit the ground running when I came home. There was no stopping me. And I didn't care. Everyone had something to say about me. Everyone said, oh, she'll be right back in. Everyone, they still say stuff. I don't care. I think that they're mad that I don't care. I don't care about anything that people say. I let God do all the talking. I'm not going to convince you that I'm not going to go back to jail. I'm not going to convince you that I'm not a liar. What I do is I just allow my actions to speak loudly, like the loudest speakers that you'll ever hear in your life, about who God has created me to be, not who I've created, because I fall short. Some days I'm getting out of bed like, God, don't start. Don't even ask me to do
Right.
anything.
Right.
I don't have it in me. I'm tired with a capital T. But if I could just save just one life with my story, I know that when I get to heaven, God's going to be doing the running me in, because it's one more person that he can look at and say, job well done. It's not the end. It's only the end when you're dead. And for me, I've been doing this thing, and a lot of people are always like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. And my daughter said, you don't know how to take compliments. And I said, it's not the compliment. I think that I'm not doing it for anybody. I'm not trying to prove anybody wrong. I'm not trying to show anybody. This is me. I've arrived. This is the person God created me to be. And I'm sorry that you never got a chance to meet me. You met my representative, but I'm
Right.
here. And, I'm here to stay. And so, again, things are not always easy. Right now, I'm trying to be a notary public. And if you look at the application, there's no room for convicted felons. I'm going to kick the door down to make it so that I'm the first one to walk in, but I won't be the last. There's things like that where I'm in the community, and so what, I have a passport. Does that mean that I shouldn't be able to do this? Does it mean I'm not trustworthy? Do I have to give you like a whole packet this thick, which I'm going to do, that proves to you that I'm the person for this job? If that's what it takes to open a door for many people like me, because this is why formerly incarcerated people get so discouraged, because there's so many doors slammed in their face. I'm a door opener, and you won't crack it. I'm pushing it, because once you crack it, I'm putting my hand in there. So you're not, what are you going to do, break my arm? So I'm going to keep pushing my way in until I get in, and hey, y'all, the door's open. Everybody come in. I feel like there is no other way. I think that there's I'm not intimidated by much anymore. Believe it or not, I used to be scared of my own shadow because I didn't know what I was going to do next.
Right.
And that wasn't in a good way. I think today, when I open up doors, people are happy to walk behind me and walk through them. So I just feel like anything I could do to prevent people from living the life that I did live willingly. There's some things I couldn't avoid. Being molested as a child, I couldn't avoid that.
Right.
I couldn't avoid that. Me going to prison, I could have avoided that.
Right.
I chose not to. And so, I'm here and I'm saying, hey, listen, there's some things you can avoid. So how can I help you get there?
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, I wanted to leave a little bit of time left where you have the floor. Is there anything you want to tell somebody that may be dealing with the same thing that you dealt with, or have a similar past, or maybe experiencing something right now? You may have somebody that's online that's experiencing something right now. What would you tell? Or in other words, what would you tell your younger self if you're in that space right now? 25-ish, and you're going through, what would you tell yourself?
Honestly, I think that I would tell my former self that I love you and that you are enough
Mm-hmm.
and that it's going to be okay and that it's not the end. And I know it appears that it's the end, but there's somebody that loves you. I think that self love is the best love. And I think that this is where we all get caught up because we don't know how to get there. When you've never seen anybody love you, when you don't even know how to get to love, when you can't even like pass by it and brush up on it, it's hard to find it, right? Even when it's presented to you because you don't know what it looks like. I
Mm-hmm.
think that for me, I would tell my former self that I love you and I care about you and you're worth it. And I would say that to anybody who's experienced anything that I've ever experienced, that I love you, that you're worth it. That if you do purchase my book, you'll see how to reach me. I love to help people. I'm not afraid of anybody's story because I have my own. And if there's anything I can do to direct you to anyone else that could help you, I would love to do that. But love, self-love, I think is the first thing that people need to find in order to heal. And God has to be in the center of that. I think that if I didn't know God, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
You'll see at the beginning of my second book how I talk about how even coming home and being here, how I just didn't want to be here in a physical sense because there was just too much going on. And that wasn't something I was used to. I spent 14 years prior to that going in and out of the prison system where you're told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And to them, I was a model inmate. I always did what I was told, but when I was outside, I never did what I was told. So I would tell people who are experiencing anything like I've experienced, God loves you, and finding your own love for yourself is the most biggest weapon you could ever have to navigate through this world, is to love yourself more than anything. Because once that happens, you won't care what anybody says. You'll be unstoppable.
Incredible, incredible. Well, do me a favor. Let them know first of all, the title and name of your book. It will be in the link description, guys. So if you go into the link description, you can have all the information how to order the book, how to contact Tawana if you actually want to set up a meeting for her to come speak to your people. Definitely we'll have all the information in the comment section. But let them know, how do they get the book? What's the name of the book? And what platform is it available on?
So the name of my book is called Hello System. And of course, it's written by Tuwana'S. And right now it's on Amazon.com for purchase. And it's also on Kindle. And you will soon be able to purchase it in Barnes and Nobles. So stay tuned for that. I think that, it's important for people who may be struggling to just read this book. It's a lot to process, but if you can relate to any of it, please reach out to me. Let me know how I could help. How I could help you to find your healing place, to find your safe space, because it's rough, but it's on Amazon.com. It's called Hello System. It's written by Tuwana'S. And I look forward to hearing from some people to tell me how I can help them. Not really to tell me how the book was. I think I read it way too many times and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is something. And if I was reading this from somebody else, I would definitely, of course, I would feel sorry for them. But then if I was in that predicament, I would want to change. So if you don't know how to get to that change or that space, please look me up. I'd love to help.
Awesome. We will have all of her social links in the description as well. And also, too, definitely leave a comment. I'll definitely make sure she has all the links and everything. She'll be able to check the comments and respond to some of you guys. So if you have a question or something, definitely reach out and get in touch with her. I love what you're doing. I think it's phenomenal that you took a situation that would have defeated most people. Probably most people would have gave up, or they would have just accepted their fate. Okay, I'm going to be in prison. I'm going to have this lifestyle. Now let me adjust to this lifestyle. But you overcame it. You came back out better, and now God has equipped you with a voice. Well, actually, a pen to actually reach. God knows how many people. You just said you're going into Barnes and Noble. That's phenomenal. I mean, I love it. Like, kudos to you. Like, congratulations. And I know it's nothing but the grace of God that actually got you into those spots. So definitely, we're going to definitely keep you lifted up and make sure you stay encouraged. We want you to stay connected to our family. our growing family. And you haven't subscribed, go and subscribe right now, become part of the family. We're definitely going to have these type of interviews on a weekly basis. I definitely want people to hear from people that are dealing with the things that they're dealing with. So, Tawana, is there anything else you want to share with anybody before we actually wrap up? We're at our time, but if you need to say anything else, you definitely have the floor. If not, then we can definitely end it out.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned for the next project, but more importantly, just stay in tune with yourself. Connect with God. There's no one greater. I wear this smile. I've been sick since I've been home, but I wear the smile because God is good all the time, right? When I'm down to nothing, he's up to something. And trust me, I've been in this apartment plenty of times down to nothing, and God has been up to everything. So I want to say God bless you. I pray that God meets you where you are, wherever that is. Trust me, you're not. A lot of people think that God can't reach them because of the state that they're in. God will meet you where you are, and he'll greet you where you are, and he'll love you past where you are to bring you to where he wants you to be. So I love you. God bless, and have a good evening, everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tawana, for coming on. We definitely going to have you back on again after that second book. And definitely, I know this is going to bless a lot of people because it definitely blessed me. Just a little bit of information I got right now. I haven't even read the book yet, but I know that I'm anticipating.
I'll send you a copy. I'll
Please
send
do.
you a copy. Yes, yes.